become connected, become connected, become connected, become connected, chained together, in such a way that when the present thought arises, it seems to be dragging its past, or resisting its future, saying, I don't want to go. Saying, I don't want to go. When then the connection, the dragging, it's better to call it, of these thoughts drops, you've broken the chain of karma. If you think of this in comparison with certain problems in music, it's very interesting. Because when we listen to music, we hear melody, we hear melody, we hear melody,
we hear melody,
we hear melody,
we hear melody,
we hear melody, we hear melody,
we hear
melody,
we hear
melody,
we hear melody, we hear melody,
we hear melody,
we hear melody, only because we remember the sequence. We hear the intervals between the tones, but more than that, we remember the tones that led up to the one we are now hearing, and we are trained musically to anticipate certain consequences. And to the extent that we get the consequences we anticipate, we feel that we understand the music. But to the extent that the composer does not adhere to the rules and gives us unexpected consequences, we feel that we don't understand the music. And if he gives us harmonic relationships, and if he gives us harmonic relationships, and if he gives us harmonic relationships which we are not trained to accept, that is to say, to expect, we say, well, this man is just writing garbage. But of course, it becomes apparent that the perception of music, the ability to hear melody, will depend upon a relationship between past, present, and future sounds. The ability to hear melody will depend upon a relationship between past, present, and future sounds. Sounds, 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 sounds. And you might say, well, you're talking about a way of living that would be equivalent to listening to music with a tone-deaf mind. So that you would eliminate the melody and have only noise. And so in your Taoist way of life, you would eliminate all meaning and have only senseless present moments. point, that's true. That is, in a way, what Buddhists and also mean by seeing things in their suchness. What is so bad about dying, for example? It's really no problem. When you die, you just drop dead. That's all there is to it. It's really no problem. When you die, you just drop dead. That's all there is to it. It's really no problem. When you die, you just drop dead. That's all there is to it. Do it, 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 do it. But what makes it a problem is that you're dragging a past. And all those things you've done, all those achievements you've made, all these relationships and people that you've accumulated as your friends, all that has to go. All that has to go. All that has to go. See, it isn't here now. I mean, a few friends might be around you, but all that past that identifies you as who you are, who you are, who you are, which is simply memory. All that has to go, and we feel just terrible about that. But if we didn't, if we were just dying, that's all, death wouldn't be a problem. So likewise, the chores of everyday life, they become intolerable. When everything ties together, everything ties together, everything ties together, all the past and the future, you feel it dragging at you every way. Supposing you wake up in the morning, and it's a lovely morning. Let's take today, right here and now. Here we are in this paradise of a place. Paradise of a place. Paradise of a place. Paradise of a place. Big Sur. And some of us have got to go to work on Monday. Is that a problem? For many people it is. It spoils the taste of what's going on now. What's going on now. When we wake up in bed on Monday morning and think of the various hurdles we've got to jump that day, immediately we feel sad and sad and sad and sad.
Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Guten Abend. Und Sam Earl zu meiner Linken. Und wir spielen jetzt ein bisschen Tanzmusik. Tanzmusik. Das Problem mit Sitzpublikum und Tanzmusik ist seit Jahrzehnten dasselbe. Irgendeiner oder eine springt auf, die anderen sehen nichts mehr und müssen auch aufstehen. Wir finden das nicht gut. Wir wollen, dass Sie sitzen bleiben. Wir wollen, dass Sie sitzen bleiben. Wir wollen, dass Sie sitzen bleiben. Sitzen bleiben. Sitzen bleiben. Nicht, dass die Musik so interessant wäre. Nicht, dass die Musik so interessant wäre, aber sieht einfach für uns besser aus. Sieht einfach für uns besser aus. Sieht einfach für uns besser aus, vor Sitzpublikum zu spielen. Also würden wir Sie bitten, sitzen zu bleiben. Dankeschön. Fang mal an, mach mal so mit dem Keyboard. Ja, danke.
Sad, 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 bored and bothered. Whereas actually we're just lying in bed. So the Taoist trick says, simply live now, simply live now, simply live now, and simply live now, 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 and there will be no problems. That's the meaning of the Zen saying, when you are hungry, eat. When you are tired, sleep. When you walk, walk. When you sit, sit. Rinzai, the great Tang Dynasty master, said, in the practice of Buddhism, there is no place for using effort. Sleep when you're tired, move your bowels, eat when you're hungry. That's all. Sleep when you're tired, move your bowels, eat when you're hungry. That's all. Sleep when you're tired, move your bowels, eat when you're hungry. That's all. Sleep when you're tired, move your bowels, eat when you're hungry. That's all. That's all. That's all. The ignorant will laugh at me, but the wise will understand. The ignorant will laugh at me, but the wise will understand. And so, also, the meaning of this wonderful Zen saying, day, that's the character for the sun, day, that is, good day. Every day is a good day. Every day is a good day. Every day is a good day. On condition, see, that day is like nyan nyan. They come one after another, and yet there's only this one. We don't link them. Other, and yet there's only this one. We don't link them. This, as I intimated just a moment ago, seems to be an atomization of life. Things just do what they do. The flower goes poof, and people go this way, go that way, and so on, and that's what's happening. It has no meaning, it has no destination, it has no value. It's just like that. And when you see that, you see it's a great relief. That's all it is. But then when you are firmly established in suchness, in that it's just this moment, you can begin again to play with the connections. Only you've seen through them.
Ist es okay da draußen? Klingt es okay? Ist okay? Ist okay?
But now you see they don't haunt you, because you know that there isn't any continuous you running on from moment to moment, who originated at some time in the past and will die at some time in the future. All that's disappeared. So you can have enormous fun anticipating the future, remembering the past, and playing all kinds of continuities. This is the meaning of that famous Zen saying about mountains are mountains. To the naive man, mountains are mountains, waters are waters. To the intermediate student, mountains are no longer mountains, waters are no longer waters. In other words, they've all dissolved into the point instant, to the kshana. But for the fully perfected student, mountains are again mountains and waters are again waters. in the philosophy of the Tao, it is said, it's always being said, you read this in every art book about Chinese art, that in Chinese painting, man is always seen as in nature, rather than dominating it. You get a painting entitled Poet Drinking by Moonlight, and you see a great landscape, and after some search with a magnifying glass, at last you see the poet stuck away in a corner somewhere drinking wine. Whereas if we painted the subject poet drinking by moonlight, the poet would be the most obvious thing in the picture. There he would be, dominating the whole thing, the landscape off somewhere behind him. But all the Chinese painters put man, the painters of the great classical tradition. There are Chinese painters who specialize in family portraits and do these very formal paintings of someone's ancestor sitting on a throne. It's quite a different category. But the Taoist-inspired painters, Zen-inspired painters, have this view of man as an integral part of nature, something in it, just as everything else is in it, flowers and birds, and not there, sent into this world, commissioned by some sort of supernatural being to come into this world and farm it and dominate it. The whole conception of nature is as a self-regulating, self-governing, indeed democratic organism. But it has a totality. It all goes together, and this totality is the Tao.
Dankeschön. Dankeschön.
When we speak in Taoism of following the course of nature, following the way, what it means is more like this. What it means is more like this. What it means is more like this. Doing things in accordance with the grain. It doesn't mean you don't cut wood, but it means that you cut wood along the lines where wood is most easy to cut. And you interact with other people along lines which are the most genial. And this then is the great fundamental principle, the great fundamental principle, and this then is the great fundamental principle, fundamental principle, mental principle, mental principle, mental principle, mental principle, mental 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 principle, mental principle, mental principle. Mental principle, mental principle, mental principle, which is called Wu Wei, not to force anything, not to force anything. I think that's the best translation. It's often called not doing, not acting, not interfering, but not to force. Seems to me to hit the nail on the head. Like, don't ever force a lock, or you bend the key or break the lock. You jiggle until it revolves. So Wu Wei is always to act in accordance with the pattern of things as they exist. Don't impose on any situation a kind of interference that is not really in accordance with the situation. For example, we have a slum, 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 and the people are in difficulty and so on, and they need better housing. Now, if you go in with a bulldozer and knock the slum down, and you will put in its place some architect's imaginative notions of what is a super efficient high-rise apartment building to store people, you create total mess, utter chaos. A slum has what we would call an ecology. It has a very complex system of relationships going in it, by which the thing is already a going concern, even though it isn't going very well. Anybody who wants to alter that situation must first of all become sensitive to all the conditions and relationships going on there. It's terribly important then to have this feeling of the interdependence of every form of life upon every other form of life. How we, for example, cultivate animals that we eat, look after them and build them up, and see that they breed in reasonable quantities. We don't do it too well, as a matter of fact, especially troubles are arising about supplies of fish in the ocean, all sorts of things. But you have to see that life, that the so-called conflict of various species with each other is not actually a competition. It's a very strange system of interrelationship, of things feeding on each other and cultivating each other at the same time. The idea of the friendly enemy, the necessary adversary, who is part of you. You have conflicts going on in your own body. All kinds of microorganisms are eating each other up. And if that wasn't happening, you wouldn't be healthy. So all those interrelationships, whether they appear to be friendly relationships as between bees and flowers, or conflicting relationships as between birds and worms, they are actually forms of cooperation. And that is mutual arising. You have to understand this as the basis, apply this, not forcing anything, and you get spontaneity. A life which is so of itself, which is natural, which is not forced, which is not unduly self-conscious. Now, another term that is important, although I'm not aware that this word occurs in Lao Tzu's book, it's found in greater use at a much later time in Chinese thought, in a philosophy that is called Neo-Confucian, and it's also used in Buddhism. But it is a very useful word for understanding the sort of order that all this constitutes. It's the word li, and this means, originally, the markings in jade, or perhaps the grain in wood or the fiber in muscle. It is translated nowadays in most dictionaries as reason or principle. But this isn't a very good translation. Joseph Needham suggested that organic pattern was an ideal translation for this word. Now you see the markings in jade are always regarded as beautiful. You might say, if you look down at the water here, when you see the waves break, there are patterns in the foam. Now if you watch those patterns, you know they never make an aesthetic mistake. Never. But they are not symmetrical, and they're very difficult to describe. They're wiggly. So are the markings in jade, so is the grain in wood, but we love the grain in wood, and a grain in wood, and a grain in wood. And you see, Jafu has done these paintings, have 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 done these paintings of rocks, based on examples, I think, in the Chinese book called The Mustard Seed Garden. These all exhibit Li. That is to say, they are forms which we know are orderly, and we can distinguish them from messes quite clearly. And so in the same way the foam patterns, the rock patterns, the patterns of vegetation, are at once extraordinarily orderly, but they don't have an obvious order. Nobody can ever pin it down, that's what I'd like to say. You know that there is order there. There's something quite different from a mess, but there's no way of really getting it. Now, in order to be able to paint that sort of way, or to live that sort of way, or to deliver justice that way, if you were a judge, to deliver justice that way, if you were a judge, you have to have it innately. You have to have an essential sense of Li.
Yes, I lie. If I tell you I'm right. Oh baby, I'd lie. If I tell you I'm right.
There's no way of describing This is the very devil for teachers, because you see all our universities and schools are trying to teach creativity. That's the great thing these days, you know. And you hear at the Esalen, all sorts of people are giving courses and workshops in creativity. Now, the trouble is this: if we found out a method whereby we could teach creativity, and everybody could just explain how it was done, and everybody could just explain how it was done, and everybody could just explain how it was done, and everybody could just explain how it was done, and everybody could just explain how it was done, it would no longer be of interest. What always is an essential element in the creative is the mysterious. 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 The dark, it's like the black in lacquer. The impenetrable, and yet the profound depth out of which glorious things come, but nobody can see why. There's a poem which says that when the bird calls, the mountain becomes more mysterious. You imagine, for example, you're in a mountain valley, and everything is, you imagine, for example, you're in a mountain valley, and everything is very silent. And suddenly a crow walks somewhere. You don't know where that crow is. And that little sound emphasizes the silence. Now, all those things have in them, you see, an element of mystery. There's a Chinese poem which puts it this way. It is a poem written by a man who has gone to find a sage in the mountains. And the sage has a little hut at the foot of the mountain and a boy there who is his servant. I asked the boy beneath the pines. He said the master's gone alone, herb gathering somewhere on the mount, cloud hidden, whereabouts unknown. In so many athletic and artistic skills, you will find a teacher who teaches you how to do it without forcing it. I once studied the piano. I'm absolutely no good at it now because I don't practice, involved in other things. But I had an absolutely superb teacher for a while. He was a very, very great musicologist. You know, there was nothing sloppy about his standards. They were the highest perfection. Perfection. Perfection.